John from Heroes and Legends, and official Magic the Gathering Commander 2015 spoilers have begun. So it looks like the way Wizards is going to spoil this is much like a regular set where they're just going to put out a handful of cards every day. Today we have 10 brand new cards to take a look at, so we'll examine those and take a close look and kind of speculate a little bit of how they're going to fit into different decks. We've seen a number of commanders, but not all of them here on the first day. But there will be more of these coming every day this week, so every day we have spoilers, I'll make sure to put out a video and we'll analyze what we saw for the day. And I assume by the end of the week or early next week we will get actual deck lists. Once we get those, we'll go ahead and examine the actual decks and hopefully let you decide which products you would like to purchase and play with. So having said that, let's jump into the new cards. First we have Kelvins Captain. This costs 2 white, 3 colorless for a giant soldier with vigilance, and it's a 5/5. Also has monstrosity 3 for 2 white and 5, and when it becomes monstrous, exile all artifacts and enchantments. So this was interesting to me. Now, stats-wise, this is pretty good. You pay 5 for a 5/5 vigilance. That's awesome. A little more mana, you can make it an 8/8 vigilance. That's great. I'm assuming the deck that this is in, though, is not using a lot of artifacts to ramp their mana, which is a little unusual because it's a typical thing you see in most commander decks. So it makes me wonder if it doesn't have the artifact way to kind of ramp, then is this going to be a little bit of a slower deck? And maybe in the late game it kind of takes over by evening the playing field by getting rid of your opponent's artifacts that are giving mana and also taking out enchantments. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Now this is a giant soldier. My assumption is going to be this is going to be in the Boros deck because the Boros commander is actually a giant soldier, and we're going to take a look at them in just a few moments. So you have Banshee of the Dread Choir. 2 black, 3 colorless. It's a 4/4 spirit, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card, but it has a brand new mechanic called Myriad. And this is pretty interesting. Whenever this creature attacks, for each opponent other than defending player, you may put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker he or she controls. Exile the token at the end of combat. So, long story short, big wall of text there. Basically, it says if I attack player 1 with this card, I get a token for every other player on the battlefield that is this card tapped and attacking. And that's kind of interesting to me. So, it's a kind of a twist on the political game that you play in the combat phase of Commander. Typically, if I'm playing against maybe 3 opponents, I have to decide, okay, I played this creature. The smart thing to do now is to attack with it. I have this power on the board. Maybe one of my opponents is able to block it, so I don't go in that direction. I have to choose between my other 2 opponents. If I choose opponent 2, opponent 3 might be upset with me. If I choose 3, 2 might be upset with me. Or my other choice is I play the political game and I just don't attack at all. Or sometimes people will kind of take turns, attack one player one turn, another player next turn, or split their attacks to just try to keep everything even. But it makes for some interesting decisions now when you have creatures where basically the creature attacks is attacking everybody. So whether you like it or not, it's just going to attack everybody. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It's going to depend on the board state and probably your play group and how much they're going to try to retaliate if someone is attacking everyone simultaneously. Very interesting twist on things. I think it adds a very cerebral aspect to the combat phase. So you have Fiery Confluence. 2 red, 2 colorless. It's a sorcery. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. So this is an interesting design. I do like this. And the 3 modes are Fiery Confluence deals 1 damage to each creature, or it can deal 2 damage to each opponent, or it can destroy target artifact. So you can blow up 3 artifacts with this. You can do 3 damage to all creatures on the board. You can do 6 damage to all your opponents, or any combination of that. That's cool. I like that. I just like the flexibility. I mean, I always like cards with multiple modes because of their flexibility, but now the fact that I can play all the same mode if I want, or just split 2 and 1, I think that's pretty awesome. Very interesting design. I'm pretty sure we're going to see more of these in the other colors. Now let's get into the multicolor. We're going to start seeing some of the commanders here. And here's the first one. Now, first off, there is a mechanic I want to mention, and it's experience counters. We did see one of the commanders leaked a few weeks ago, so we kind of knew this was coming. We'll talk about that commander too in just a moment, but this is the first one. And basically, the The experience counters, think of them kind of like poison counters. They kind of just stick to you. They don't go away. They're just always there. So even if your commander dies, you still personally have the experience counters, which makes it more powerful the next time you're able to play it. I really think this is a cool idea. So this one in particular costs a black, a white, one colorless. This is Daxos the Returned, and it's a zombie soldier for 2/2. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get an experience counter, and then you can pay a black, a white, and a colorless to put a white and black spirit enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. It has this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of experience counters you have. So in the beginning, maybe not super overwhelming, but as the game goes on, this could become a big deal. I'm also looking forward to the fact that this is a black and white enchantment themed deck. I think that's going to be really cool to play something like that, especially I'm sure you'll have a lot of like Theros theming and stuff to it, so pretty cool. Maybe even some throwback to Kamigawa spirits in the black and white. So I think this deck could be really fun and really themed well. So looking forward to this. One thing I'll say in particular about this card, read it carefully. The token does not have flying, so the token does not have evasion, which takes away the power level a little bit since these creatures can now be chump blocked and what have you, but they are cheap to put out on the battlefield and they could still take over the game. It's still plenty powerful, so don't worry. Flying may have put it maybe a little over the top. Next we have a Kelvin Disciple of Erois, and this was the one that was leaked a couple weeks ago, and we did a video on it. You can check it out, but I won't go into too much detail about it this time around. One white, one red, two colorless. It's a 3/3 legendary giant soldier. Double strike vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, you get an experience counter, and this creature will get +1/+1 for each experience counter you have. Now, when this was leaked, there was a little bit of chatter that this didn't seem that powerful, but I do have to disagree. I think this is pretty strong. I think people underestimate how out of control double strike and vigilance can get, it just from a offensive and defensive point of view. And this card comes in as a 3/3 double strike vigilance for 4. That's pretty good. And then the fact that once you start getting these experience counters, 4/4 double strike vigilance, 5/5 double strike vigilance, it just starts to become overwhelming at a certain point. And on top of that, the way it's getting its experience counters is by putting big creatures on the board. This is definitely going to be part of a giant deck. So this deck I think could be quite good, and this card I think will be quite good in it. Next we have a Simic legendary creature. Now this one is probably not the official commander because it doesn't have the experience counter mechanic, but this is probably one of the kind of sub commanders, and typically when they make these products they give you at least a second or even third legendary creature in those colors, so you can switch those out and try different commanders. So I think this is one of those. This is Casito Orochi Archmage, and is 1 green, 1 blue, and a colorless. He's a legendary creature, Snake Wizard, 2/2. Pay a green and a blue. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If that creature is a snake, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So, first off, I'll say, I don't know, this feels like maybe Kamigawa themed, which is pretty cool. I do like that. Here's what's kind of interesting about this, though. There's not a lot of snakes in Magic, although I'm sure they're going to print some new ones for this deck, which could be pretty cool. But if you're targeting a snake with this, notice that you can use this as many times as you have mana, so you could pump this and basically make an unblockable shade that's getting +2/+2 for 2 mana. That's pretty awesome. So this is a pretty strong card. I really like it. I'm very intrigued to see what the rest of this deck will look like and see what kind of new snakes are on the horizon. Next we have Mizerock Crawl, a Death Priest, and this costs a black, a green, and 3 colorless. It's a legendary insect shaman, 2/2. Has flying. Whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So again, this looks like maybe another one of those side commanders that you can switch out for the Golgari deck. Now, according to what we've seen so far and some of the hints that Wizards dropped, sounds like the Golgari deck is going to be a graveyard themed deck, which maybe will have a bit of a dredge element or something like that, or maybe kind of like a living end, living death type feel to it. I don't know. But this creature on its own isn't super powerful, but surrounded by the right cards to sacrifice and the right ways to kind of abuse what you have in your graveyard, this could be quite good. So I'm very interested to see the Golgari deck. I think this could be a deck with a lot of neat synergies. Next we have Mizerock of the Magnus. 1 blue, 1 red, 2 colorless. I said it. This is a legendary creature, Goblin Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each experience counter you have, and it is a 2/2. So this will be your Izzet commander. I find this one very interesting. So it feels like maybe the Izzet deck is going to be some sort of huge spell, haymaker spells and sorcery sort of deck, which could be a lot of fun. And I'm picturing things like Omniscience and just huge haymakers that you could put out there. Now, the one thing I will say, keep in mind that this might get awkward at times if you can't kind of cast your spells on a curve and you don't really get the bonus or able to get the experience counter you need to maybe cast your next spell. But it'd be interesting to see how the deck's balanced. I'm assuming there'll be a lot of small spells to help you get there, and then just the right amount of spells to curve out into something really big and dramatic. So once again, a nice little teaser of what's to come from all these commander decks. Alright, now let's move on to artifacts. This one is Blade of Selves, costs 2, it's equipment, costs 4 to equip, and equipped creature has Myriad. So kind of interesting. You can equip this to a creature and it gets Myriad, and there you have it. So you can kind of play around with that mechanic a little bit. Equip costs a little high, but 4 in commander isn't that bad. Now for the last card of the day, it's Skype Call, costs 5. It's an equipment, but it's a living weapon, so it comes into play automatically with a 0/0 black germ token attached to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half his or her life, rounded up. Costs 3 to equip. So here's an interesting thought. We just saw that last artifact that you could equip onto your creature along with this one. And now it has Myriad, and anytime it deals combat damage, it's going to do damage to all of your opponent's life totals if it gets by. That's kind of interesting. And we also saw the snake legendary creature that basically can make creatures unblockable. I wonder if those are all going to be in the same deck. Maybe, maybe not. But pretty interesting, and pretty powerful effect there if that's the case, just judging by a handful of cards that we've seen. So having said that, those are the spoilers for today. Like I said, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet to the channel, definitely a good time to do so. We'll be back every day that spoilers are out there to talk about them, and this is pretty exciting. We saw a nice tease today of what to expect from the product. Looking at the commanders, I'm pretty excited about it. I think these are going to be a lot of fun decks to play and a lot of interesting new mechanics. I feel like Wizards isn't just kind of throwing together some good old cards and some good new cards. I think they're really thinking about synergies and ways to make these decks all feel very special, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be really cool. So hey, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a good day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.